Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about the 6-episode documentary series called Q Into the Storm that's been on HBO and HBO Max. I believe it airs on HBO, or aired, I should say. It's over now, 6 episodes. Aired Sunday at 9 and 10 on HBO, or it just hits HBO Max around that time. I'm not sure because I always watch it on HBO Max, so I don't know if it aired on television first and then hit HBO Max, but regardless, you can find it on HBO Max and probably anywhere you can get HBO on demand. So basically, this documentary series is about a few things. It's not as simple as being about QAnon or as being about this individual named Q who sparked everything that QAnon stands for and follows. It's about both of those things, but it's also about, I think on a larger scale, censorship, free speech, the idea of these, how these message boards came to be, 4chan, 8chan, all of these sorts of things, and the role that they play in radicalizing individuals or spreading misinformation and all sorts of things like that. And I think that's where this documentary does its best work, is putting that mirror in front of internet shit. And when I say internet shit, I mean like the people who go on the internet and behave one way when in reality they're not that person. You know, people who are, say, tough guys or on power trips, on the internet, but then they're really just some loser living in their mom's basement or something like that. And holding up a mirror to the idea of censorship as it pertains to internet shit. So, people who have the opportunity to say whatever they want, and then how does that impact not just the people they say it to or the people in that community, but how does that kind of like transfer into real life? I don't want to say consequences, because there might not necessarily be consequences, but just like real life repercussions or just ways in which their internet speech impacts real life. So I think that's kind of where this documentary does its best work. And this has been a kind of a tough one for me to talk about because I've never really watched a documentary from an analytical viewpoint. And what I mean by that is I watch it in the sense of like, okay, I'm taking in this information. How valid does this information feel to me? How surprising is what I'm learning? Is this something that I should have already known? Those sorts of things. But an analytical eye for the documentary itself, I've never really done that before. So, but once I got, I think a couple episodes into this, I realized it was something I wanted to talk about. But I have to take kind of a nuanced approach to this because I'm not here to talk about QAnon. I'm not here to talk about whether or not I agree or disagree, or whether or not my personal feelings on the individuals involved. I will talk about some of that to some degree, but I'm mainly here to talk about the quality of the documentary series and not the content itself, or the content itself. I am here to talk about that as well, but like the individuals within the documentary and their viewpoints. So trying to find a balance between those two things is kind of tricky, but I'm going to give it a shot. But the first thing I want to talk about is kind of the structure of the documentary. And it, like I mentioned at the top, it's 6 episodes, but as you progress through each episode, you realize that the story's being told to you in a strange sort of way. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. In the 6th and final episode, I was still being introduced to players within this entire story in the last episode. I feel like that shouldn't happen. Like, by the time we get to the last episode, we should have a pretty strong idea of how these people are related to one another, who they are, who all the players are. And I kind of feel like that's kind of like how progression happens in television and cinema, where it's kind of like, okay, here's you got a start point and a finish point. I guess that would be kind of like the best way to put it, right? And every now and then you can have something that doesn't tell a story in a linear fashion, right? Which a lot of that stuff's pretty popular. But when it comes to a documentary, I found it a little weird to kind of feel like I'm jumping around in time, where it's like, we want this episode to focus on this specific story, as opposed to where it falls in the timeline of events. That was a little off-putting to me. Like, for instance, I think it was like episode 4 spends a lot of time making a case that Steve Bannon might be Q. And if you decide up front, okay, I want episode 4 to be about Steve Bannon, then you enter into a place where everything contained within that 4th episode, meaning that there were 3 episodes prior to it, but everything contained in that 4th episode could have taken place at any given time. So you can have information that should have been in the first 3 episodes. You could have information that should have been in future episodes. And it's a little disorienting, I think would be the best way to put it. It's a little disorienting to kind of like have themed episodes kind of, as opposed to a linear story kind of going from start to finish, which is where it seemed like it was going at first. The first episode kind of gave background information on the creation of these message boards, image boards, like 4chan, 8chan, stuff like that, and the idea of Q, who is Q, and who is this person, and we kind of get that in those first 2 episodes, I believe, and then they kind of start to focus on individuals who might be Q, and like I said, that's when things get kind of weird because, like I said, you have different timelines of events that could play out in one episode, and these could be things that should have been in previous ones or in future ones. And then you also have I'm sorry, so I'm just like something floating in front of my face. I don't know what the fuck that was. And then you also end up with situations where you have somebody being introduced to you late in the game that you feel like, okay, I'm in the 5th or 6th episode. This person seems pretty important. I feel like I should have known about this person in episodes 1 or 2, but you don't, because the focus is, okay, we want this episode to be about this theme or this individual rather than playing out your events in a linear fashion. So it's one of those things where I feel like for me, it was a little disorienting. It's not really like a bad thing, I guess, but it felt a little messy, I guess would be the best way to put it. The construction of it, how it flowed from episode 1 to episode 6, it felt choppy. Like there was an episode where it just kind of felt like they were just throwing scenes at me, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like this could be cleaner. It's never at a point where it doesn't make sense. Like it's sloppily edited and you're just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on or where I am. It's always something more of a just like a barrage of the senses, kind of like there's so many different things coming at you, and it's kind of like I understand what's being told to me, but disorienting is just a perfect word. It's just a little disorienting to like kind of be all over the place. So I think that's my biggest issue with this documentary. And like I said, at the end of the day, it didn't affect my ability to understand what was going on. So it's not a huge knock against it or anything like that. But one of the other things I want to talk about is, like I mentioned at the top, that mirror that you put up against internet culture. And the way this documentary talks about the ideas of censorship and what it kind of spurred in my head, combined with things that are happening in real life. So, well, this is real life, but you know what I mean. Things that are happening today versus things that were happening in while this documentary is being filmed. And to give a little bit of a background, the creator of 8chan is this guy named Fred Brennan, and he created he was on 4chan, didn't like it, thought it was too heavily moderated or too censored. People didn't have the ability to say what they want. This was a guy who made some fucking site for incels or some shit and then got laid by a prostitute and was like, yo, fuck this incel shit, pussy's great. I'm in on this. So but they got this guy, and he decides that, 4chan's too heavily censored, too moderated for me, so I'm gonna create 8chan and people could say whatever the fuck they want. And things got out of hand. Like he said that, like he would look at the site and sometimes go, maybe free speech for everybody isn't the best thing in the world, because he's looking like, man, these people are saying some wild shit. And then at the end of the day, you kind of look at stuff and you go, man, these people are saying some wild shit. But at the end of the day, all it is people saying wild shit on the internet. And it might reflect how they really feel. Like, you might see some racist stuff. You might see some child porn type stuff, but they apparently they take that down because it's illegal. But anything else they could do. But like they said that like it would pop up so much and they'd have to consistently take it down. But like I said, at the end of the day, these are just things being shared on the internet. These might even be things that these people believe, but at the end of the day, these aren't real life actions, right? But as time progresses, a lot of these things do start to take real life form. So when you have these internet, I don't want to call them cults, but like these internet kind of like, we'll stick with cults because I'm struggling to find a different word, but cult isn't the word I necessarily want to use. But when you have these groups, you want to tell yourself that these are like internet radicals, right? And that you are kind of like safe from it in this real world where real life things happen. But then now we're in this world where these people are now in Congress. Like, this isn't just like a, you can lock your phone and you don't have to see that shit anymore. Like, these people are in Congress, helping to pass laws, going on CNN and Fox News and all this kind of stuff. And now this shit is real. And I think there's something to be said, a greater conversation to be had about where we draw the line on censorship and free speech. Because when you look at it now, I saw a guy on Twitter yesterday who got suspended for saying something like, I can't remember who specifically, but should make electric cars or something like that. And they got suspended for bullying or something like that. And it was crazy. And then I had someone else who messaged me because they commented on a status that I did on Facebook, and they got suspended for it. And all it was essentially saying that they know that people on Twitter are people on Twitter are weirdos or some shit like that. It was insulting to Twitter was what it was. And he got suspended for like, I think it was like say hate speech or some shit like that. So when these things kind of get out of hand, and now we're living in a world where both extremes are present and problematic. The extreme of too much censorship, like what I just mentioned with the guy who insulted Twitter, and the guy who said that somebody should have electric cars or some shit like that, where it's like now it's like you got censorship on like on autopilot. Like, this shit is automated, searching for maybe specific keywords or words put together in a certain way that can be like, oh, this person said something problematic that violates our terms of service, suspend them. And this isn't even being looked at by human eyes. Like, we've automated censoring people. That's problematic on one far end. On the opposite far end is not enough censorship. So you look at these folks on 8chan or 4chan, all this stuff they're doing, and then you go, okay, we're not going to censor these people at all. They can do and say whatever they please, and then now that information starts to inject itself into real life, to where now people are believing these things, and then those people who believe these things now rise in the ranks of Congress, and now you have somebody in Congress who might be making laws or stopping the creation of laws based on complete and total internet bullshit that some fucking weirdo made up. So it's like, you don't want to leave people completely free to do whatever they want, because then it can interject itself, like the misinformation can feed into real life and people get all worked up and they don't know what the reality is, but they have a staunch belief in whatever it is that they read on this non-censored internet post. And now that motherfucker's in Congress doing and saying whatever the fuck they want. And then you got the opposite end of like, now somebody's got suspended for saying somebody should have an electric car. So it's like, I think there's a great conversation that I think this documentary can help spur regarding censorship and where we draw the line. I'm not going to go into my personal thoughts on it, because I'm actually kind of still wrapping my head around it a little bit, because what I saw about that electric car thing and about the insulting people who are on Twitter or insulting Twitter, those accounts being suspended for those reasons, that kind of shook me, because I'm like, okay, I feel like this is going too far. And if you go back to, like, say when Trump's Twitter account got suspended, you have people going, this is Twitter's right. They're a private company. If they don't want somebody on it, they don't have to be on it. True. You can look at Donald Trump's tweets and go, some of these tweets were incredibly problematic. There was some hate speech in there. There was some riot inciting stuff. This is a guy that should not be on this platform because he has too many people who listen to him, and he's saying some wildly problematic shit. So he deserves to be suspended. If you believe that, cool too. But the problem is, where is that line drawn? Where is it? When do we say, okay, this person, say it's not Donald Trump, say it's me, and I say something like, just I don't know, no, what, something that some individual doesn't like, or that some Twitter algorithm that's searching for hate speech doesn't like. And now my account's suspended, and I didn't even say or do anything wrong, but now Twitter and Facebook and social media have such control over what we say and what the information that we share, that now I'm just fucked, because we have opened that door at this point to allow them to kind of like dictate what is said and what information is spread. This is even talked about further in the documentary, because one of the current owners of 8chan has like some sort of software or some algorithm that allows him to manipulate how his tweets hit Twitter. So he said something like, when he tweets, he was the second most influential person behind Donald Trump, because he had some algorithm to kind of like cheat the system or some shit. But the point is that, like, this information gets manipulated like this, to where, we can see things that either feed into our belief or see things that oppose our beliefs. And that is the entirety of our world. And that's why this censorship thing is so tricky. It's like, okay, what information is false? What information is true? Who makes that determination? Because whether or not it's true or not is barely relevant. It's more so about who is in charge of disseminating that information and going, this is something that people should see, or this is something that they shouldn't. So lots of good stuff to talk about from that perspective, the perspective of censorship. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, a little bit more lighthearted, is so once this Fred Brennan guy decided he didn't want to fuck with 8chan anymore, he sold it to Ron and Jim Watkins. Ron and Jim Watkins ran 8chan, and the documentary throughout the course of the 6 episodes makes a strong case that one or both of them is Q. They being Ron and Jim, for me, gave themselves away as being Q in like the first or second episode, because they lie, they overlie, they lie like Trump lies. So like when we talk about Trump's lies, Trump doesn't just make a statement, right? He'll keep lying to the point where the lie becomes unbelievable, and then it makes the original statement look bad. So I'll give you an example. Let's say he goes, I cut taxes for the middle class more than Barack Obama did. Okay, let's say he said that. Now, let's say that's not true. He could just stop there, but then he always has to keep going. I mean, like, nobody's cut taxes more than I have. Nobody's done more for the black community than I have. Like, he always takes it to this extremes where it's so extreme that your original statement can't even be believed anymore, because you couldn't just leave it at that. And they do that same style of lying that gives them away as lying. Because you can go, hey, are you Q? No, I'm not Q. And you could stop there, and people can choose to believe you or not. When you go, I'm not, when you're the person who owns and runs 8chan, and then you go, not only am I not Q, I don't even know what or who Q is, or I don't even go on the message board like that. I don't know what QAnon is. I don't get involved in like when you start making the statements that are so extreme that you as the owner of 8chan pretend like you don't go on the site, you don't know what's on it, you have no clue what's going on. Like now you're making statements that I can't even, these aren't even remotely believable to me. Like there's no way I can believe that you as the owner of 8chan have no fucking clue what's going on your site. So the lies were so extreme that it was like, okay, I know you have to be Q or affiliated with Q, because like I can't believe you when you just are saying like they're going as far as they possibly can. Like I don't even know what is Q. I only know it as a letter of the alphabet. They don't say that, but that's kind of like that's the style in which they lie. It's like, I have no clue. Not only am I not Q, but I don't know anything other than the letter Q. Everything else other than the letter Q is foreign to me, and I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like, okay, come on. You run 8chan. What the fuck are you talking about? But I found that to be interesting, because like these guys are totally ridiculous. And I think I think what happens is that this is an example of when you have high levels of intelligence, but very low levels of social intelligence. Like these are guys that, they're running this site, they're orchestrating all this QAnon shit from behind the scenes. It takes a high level of intellect, friends in high places, all those sorts of things to be able to pull off something like this. And it takes an incredible amount of stupidity to not be able to adequately lie about it. And I think that they thought, as intelligent as they are, they're so stupid socially that they thought that this extreme version of lying somehow made them look less involved. Unless, of course, it's all one big scam and they were doing that on purpose to make themselves look as if they, to basically to give the perception that I am now stating. And that was intentional. It's kind of tongue in cheek, like they don't really give a shit if people know that they're Q. That could be different, but I think it's probably the thing of like, yeah, you're highly intelligent in this one aspect of life and incredibly stupid in this other aspect of life. So you don't realize that you could have stopped lying way back there. You didn't have to keep going all the way to this extreme point of like, I don't even know what the internet is. Like, okay, if you're gonna lie that hard, now I have no choice but to know that you're lying. So, all in all, like I feel like it's a fairly, I don't want to say mediocre documentary. It's better than mediocre because I feel like what you could take away from it, the conversations that you can take away from it regarding censorship and regarding what I just said about their overlying. I feel like you can take some things out from that and have some really good conversations in real life that can spur some change or some insight or some added knowledge to someone. I feel like good can come from that. But on a technical level, just the way the documentary is constructed, the way it plays out, it feels very, I don't want to say rushed, but sloppy, I think would be, a lesser version of sloppy. Messy? I don't know. But it doesn't flow very well for me. But all in all, I think it is worth watching just because I think it can spark really good conversation. So it can be one of those things you watch in a group, but there's some very unsettling footage in this film in this series, because there's a lot of screenshots from 8chan when it talks about 8chan and how it's created and the kind of content that's on there. There's some shocking stuff. So might want to take that into account should you choose to watch it, but you'll definitely learn a lot about QAnon, about Q, about puzzles. Like the episode 5 was about this thing called Cicada 3301. I don't know what that is, but it's some sort of puzzle game that was on the internet that bled into real life, that it involved like code breaking and shit like that. And they hypothesized that it was a means of recruiting like CIA or NSA folks, which I find that to be an incredibly entertaining and intriguing premise, but I kind of default to a lot of those things just being like people on the internet really like to fuck with you. So, but I think that's all I have on this right now. There's so many things to go over, but I don't want to have this video extend really too much farther beyond the current duration. So if you have any questions or comments on it, you can feel free to drop them in the comments of this video or to email me at onemikepodcast@gmail.com. And hit me on Twitter at One Mic Network. Anywhere, you might find me. You might want to talk about this documentary because there's a lot to discuss, and I think it's pretty interesting and stuff worth talking about. So all in all, I will say that I enjoyed it. It's I'd probably give it like a B minus grade, just off of the sheer entertainment value that I got from it. Because like I said, there's a lot of laughs to be had here, but. Yeah, I mean, check it out. It's solid. I think it's definitely worth your 6 or so hours, give or take, of time that you'll spend watching it. It's not, by any means a must-see, crazy good documentary, but I think watching it in groups and maybe having conversations about some of the stuff that you see, it could make for some really good and beneficial conversation. So I do recommend that. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.